Hey guys, welcome back to my channel, Bipolar Badass. Yesterday I posted a video of my mixed and rapid cycling episodes, which I know came before this, it shouldn't have. Today I'm going to explain what bipolar disorder is. Um, Basically, it is a person who experiences two different ends of the spectrum. They are manic, which means they're full of energy, euphoric. Hypomania is more of like less manic, but still, easily excitable, and these grandiose feelings that is presented in somebody with bipolar disorder. Mania can be a little bit more self destructive. Um, you spend $1,000 on something that you really don't need, or making a business investment on something that you just at that moment feel like that is what you're going to do. That is what I was designed for. And the opposite end of that spectrum is the depressive state, where you feel hopeless and lonely and sometimes even suicidal. And the problem with that is when you do have bipolar, you have these strong urges and impulses that if somebody is suicidal, they have that impulse to end it now. There's no rationalizing it because in their mind it is rational. That feeling is overwhelming. And same thing with mania too. You have these over exaggerated impulses. For example, like I built a bed when I was manic, or I did a mural on that bed while I was manic. Those are some of my healthier coping skills. Um, Up until the beginning of this year, some of my impulses were dangerous and I put myself in very risky situations. I did, eventually, I got sober, um, which seems to help me manage my ups and downs a little bit more. When I was drinking when I was manic, I would make terrible choices and really fuck up my life. And when I was depressed, it was serious, and I contemplated suicide, and I just felt like this life was not worth living anymore. So the normal brain, they experience highs and lows, but it is just not to the extreme that's associated with bipolar disorder. Like I told my social worker, for me, it's almost like having three different personalities. There's manic Amber, there is depressed Amber, and then there's just me, somewhere in the middle of that doesn't get to come out very often. She's kind of, reserved in comparison to the other two. Now, there are multiple types of bipolar disorders. There's bipolar 1, where you experience extreme mania that can lead into psychosis, which I'm going to touch on that a little bit later, and extreme lows. Whereas bipolar 2, you experience hypomania and depression. I don't think I need to really go into the definition of depression because that's something well known throughout the everywhere. So touching on what psychosis is basically a level above mania, where you experience delusions and just like these excessively life-changing impulses. One of the bigger impulses during delusional, you kind of, for me, it was like I developed these delusions of conversations, for example, where I can vividly remember reading something through text message or having a conversation with somebody, but that didn't really happen. And through self-reflection and self-observation, I was able to find and identify the level of psychosis I was at, which was pretty extreme. I was hospitalized last year for it. And even through hospitalization, I was still in denial of my current state. I was wholeheartedly convinced that I was there because I had a burnout from work, that I worked too much. Um, and that was not the case at all. I want to say my biggest delusion and hallucination occurred last year and probably as far back as the year before. And that was that I had a demon in my house. Uh, every ounce of my body was convinced that that were to be true. I hallucinated and I saw shadows and I felt things that felt very, very real to me at the time. So much so that I moved into a completely different city to get away because I felt that my life was in jeopardy. We're past that now, thankfully. This last time that I was hospitalized, about a week ago, it was a preventative measure. It was because I knew that if I were to not sleep the way that I was going to ultimately end up in psychosis again. And it was kind of happening because I was remembering conversations incorrectly. I was starting to get to the state of delusional. And I felt it of medical necessity to check myself in and get my meds adjusted. Now, everybody experiences their symptoms differently. I tend to stay more on the manic side than the depressed state. My depressions are very, very, very hard, but they don't last quite as long as my mania. And thankfully, the psychosis was corrected at some point through medication. If you are experiencing something that possibly could be psychosis, something like super grand and just out there, and your friends and family are pointing it out, seek help, guys. Like, if there's one thing I learned through this journey and through all this self-reflection is, as much as it sucks, I need my meds to be leveled out. Otherwise, I'm just going to continue destroying my life. And other symptoms that people may experience in mania would be when you start dating somebody. You just feel these like amazing feelings of love, and it's it happens very quickly. Also, you have hypersexuality, which comes from mania as well. And hyposexuality is basically having a very unhealthy level of a sex drive, and it sounds fun, but at some point it hits the point where it's not fun. Like, you're just doing it because you feel like you need that release, which can be dangerous to you if you're putting yourself in situations with people you don't really know, or even in your relationship. You know, a lot of people with bipolar, they have affairs, and it's based off of that impulsive urge to have sex, to feel that release because they feel like they need it. You can also experience high levels of agitation and anger. Luckily, that's one that is very, very rare in my case. Typically, my mania is a happy high. I very rarely get agitated or angry. Up until recently, I don't really remember too many times that had happened. That was also an indicator that I needed to get my meds straightened out. Now, in depressed states, you may feel like your partner doesn't really want to be with you, that they are cheating on you, and that also stems in with delusions. You tend to distance yourself, and let's see, gosh, there's so many different elements that come into play, and like I said, it's very different for each individual person. All that we as bipolar need, and I'm hoping that I could speak to, for most of us, that consistent companionship from whether it's a significant other, family, friends, somebody. We just want to know that somebody is on our side, even though we kind of seclude ourselves and sometimes flat out ghost people. It really is a destructive disorder, and it is terminally ill. Like, there is an extremely high amount of people who commit suicide from those, strong impulses. That's why I suggest get on your meds, find a doctor who's willing to work with you until you find the right combination of medication. Not everybody, like my video yesterday, experiences rapid or mixed cycling like I do, which is hell. Like, to go up and down in very short periods of times, or to feel really excited and hyper and sad at the same time. I'm struggling to figure out where I want to go with this because my brain is racing. So just in conclusion with that, basically we just feel things differently than the normal person. We feel it with our mind, body, and soul, and whatever we do, we put all into it, whether it's being sad and having to sleep 15 hours a night, or it's being extremely manic and building extremely difficult things just for the sake of building something and staying busy. I think that we all have some commonalities, not always the same extreme as some others, but there are a lot of commonalities in our symptoms. Like, for example, I was not aware that my impulsive shopping was a symptom. I just thought I was a shopaholic when I was excited, or gambling, or drinking. There's a huge percentage of people with bipolar disorder that also suffer with an addiction. We try to self-medicate, and through self-reflection and understanding this disorder, I'm able to fight that. I'm able to fight the urge to continue drinking. I am a recovering alcoholic, and I'm also a recovering addict. I didn't use every day, but I definitely at some point in time was self-medicating. I would just take a Xanax here and there because I felt that I needed that there was no reason for me to be on meds for the rest of my life if I can just treat it when it happens. But the problem with that is you don't really know that it's happening till you're already there, for most people. And at that point in my life, that was the case. I didn't realize that I was manic until I blew $150 on scratch tickets. Luckily now, I'm to the point where I learn those early signs and triggers, and I can seek help or counseling or therapy as those episodes come on. One of the biggest indicators that I'm going to go manic is not sleeping. I will stay up for 2 or 3 days at a time. And with depression, it is too much sleeping. I feel tired and lethargic all day long, despite having no reason to, despite getting sleep the night before. And I just think that it's very important to learn what your triggers are. And we'll discuss that in a later video, the common triggers or early signals of what sends you into episodes, which sends you into either manic, hypomanic, depressed. Like, I'll discuss what works for me in identifying those and hopefully be able to help some of you guys out as well. Right now, obviously, I'm manic. Don't know if you could tell. I'm talking a little bit fast and stumbling over my words and having trouble isolating certain thoughts in my head. I'm trying to speak on a dozen thoughts at a time, which it makes for a confusing video and makes me say a lot and have to pause and be like, okay, this thought is first. I will get this thought out. All of that is certain signs for me that I am, in fact, manic right now. Hypomanic. I wouldn't say go all the way to say manic, because I'm not doing anything that is extreme other than talking a lot. So I hope this helps you understand what bipolar is, with a little bit of symptoms thrown in, just to help you out. In summary, we just have a little bit bigger of a roller coaster than most people. And I hope this helped you to understand it a little bit. Thank you for your time. Like and subscribe.